by British Airways and Virgin Atlantic. Our 21 frequencies have not been utilized from the very beginning, but we have a designated carrier right now, ARIC, that uses 7 out of Lagos weekly and used to use 5 out of Abuja weekly into Heathrow until about mid-October, when the access to those 5 slots into Heathrow were abruptly taken out of ARIC's reach. I need to emphasize that this is not about ARIC Airlines at all. This is just about the reciprocal rights to the market between the UK and Nigeria, and how those rights are translated into real access to the market. And you have a situation where you play on your strengths. The British have a strength, and that's Heathrow Airport. It's a global hub, and it has a slot system that is not so much about capacity of Heathrow as it is about vesting the rights in airlines. So you can have slots into Heathrow that you don't use, that you can trade with. It's not about access to Heathrow. So you have a British Airways, for instance, that's a dominant player in Heathrow. It had, until mid-October, 45% of the slots into Heathrow. And then it purchased BMI, which was the second biggest slot holder, with 8.2% of the slots. So it now has 53% of the slots into Heathrow. Now, does it have to use those slots? It doesn't have to, but those slots are vested in it. So it can use them, it can trade with them, etc. Now, what has happened is that a Nigerian carrier has been edged out of the market. And in a nutshell, the question that is being asked now, for people to understand clearly, is our British counterparts, are they willing to give up our strength? Our strength is a highly profitable, highly lucrative market for them for so many years, in exchange for just 5 slots of one Nigerian carrier into Heathrow.
Okay.
That's the question we're asking.
We are made to understand that the BASA agreement was signed way back in 1958. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Originally, yes.
Originally, have there been any reviews, taking
Yes.
into cognizance the changes, the evolution in the aviation sector in both countries, as it were?
Yes, they have. There are periodic reviews. The agreement allows for any party to, at any time they feel like reviewing it, ask the other party for a review. I think the last review, must have been about 2008. They didn't touch it. They just looked at it, and it was fine, and they carried on. I think there may be a need for us to review it more often, but I think what has happened now is that, as part of a roadmap of our transformation agenda in our environment, in the aviation ministry in Nigeria, we decided to start relooking at the access rights and playing on our strength. We have a huge strength. We have a highly profitable, highly lucrative, demand-elastic market for any carrier. And that is an exchange for the huge advantage they have in controlling the slots into Heathrow.
The reason why that is important is because a host of people might say that it's possible, I'm not sure now, that the British government has, made its aviation sector a little stronger, possibly privatized it, and so it's completely, that's one of the arguments that we've heard so far, and so the privatization has taken it completely out of the hands of the British government, as it were.
Well, ostensibly, yes, but the British are very experienced at this. They've been able to manage this issue of slots around Heathrow as an underlying factor to whatever kind of market rights they give to you. An airline wants to go into Heathrow because it offers its passengers the opportunity to hub globally versus any other airport around London. And therefore, if you're going to fill up your aeroplane all the time, because most people aren't going to be going to London, they'll be going through London somewhere else. Heathrow offers the best connection or best connectivity out of London. Now, they trade that very carefully. It's got an Airports Coordination Limited company that's supposed to be independent. It's made up of the 9 biggest carriers, 9 biggest UK-based carriers. And they jealously control those slots. And those slots are not slots in the real sense of the word, because they are vested. If you don't use them or you use them, it doesn't matter. So it's not about capacity of the airport. It's about ownership of rights into the airport. If I don't use them, I still keep
slots
them.
and frequencies, are they used interchangeably?
No. Frequency says you're allowed to fly in 21 times a week.
Okay.
But where are you going to fly into if you can't fly into Heathrow?
That's where the slots come in.
That's where the slots come in. And the slots are vested by right, not by capacity. So you can have 53% of the slots and be utilizing only 40%.
You know what some other people don't even understand here is about the company, the ACL, which is the major company that has been consented to award slots to aircraft or carriers. Now, they were the ones responsible to have they ejected Arik, so to speak, out of the Heathrow airport, right?
It's a bit more convoluted than that.
Yes.
Arik was accessing slots in Heathrow through part of the slots that are vested in or that are owned by BMI. Now, BMI is a British carrier, which British Airways just bought. So they took control of those slots, and those slots now became unavailable to the Nigerian carrier. I don't want to keep mentioning Arik, to the Nigerian carrier. Now, if that is allowed to happen, everyone else is watching in the world. Now, how can we treat these people? We have a lucrative market that I don't want to say is your most profitable, but I can bet you it's one of your top most profitable routes into Lagos and Abuja. You've had it for years. You've maximized your frequencies into Nigeria. And then you elbow out a fringe player, Nigerian carrier that has got 5 slots into Heathrow. And you can, because you now control 53% of the slots into Heathrow that you don't necessarily have to use, they're just vested in you. You can even lease them to them because they've been leasing them before. But all of a sudden they can't fly to, a Nigerian carrier can't fly, that was flying, can't fly to Heathrow.
What were the reasons given?
It's difficult to point at the reasons beyond saying that, unfortunately, the slots we used to lease to you are no longer available from the end of the month. And obviously, the Nigerian carrier asks, okay, ACL, can I get slots? And ACL says, well, yes, these are the slots for the winter season. There's nothing in November. In December, you can have on Monday at 10 a.m., on Tuesday at 4 p.m. I mean, no scheduled carrier can fly like that. And so what are they willing to trade? Are they willing to trade access? This is the question we're asking them. The very highly profitable, lucrative access into our market for just 5 slots of a fringe carrier from Nigeria into Heathrow. What are they willing to trade?
You know, before this new talk about, they say, well, an agreement is binding on all parties involved, and in this case, the Nigerian government and the British government. But again, this talk of November the 15th that we'll be having, now they say, well, it's like tit for tat. November the 15th, we'll be seeing the BA touchdown on Sundays, Wednesdays, and Fridays, 6 a.m., and you can take off from 10 p.m. But who has the authorities been speaking with in this regard before we arrived at all of this?
It's been a process. With the chucking out of the Nigerian carrier out of Heathrow, the aviation minister invited the British High Commissioner into a meeting to start discussing the issues. And the long and short of it was that this is something that's commercial and independent to Heathrow Airport. The government doesn't have a hand in it, stuff like that. So the government couldn't help us, couldn't help the Nigerian registered carrier. It's important. Today it's Arik, tomorrow it might be your airline or your airline. We need to establish clearly in the minds of the people that we trade our lucrative market with that, you also have some responsibilities to us. And we need to grow our own carriers. And therefore, you can't just elbow us or elbow any of our carriers out of your market without expecting that there will be some reciprocal response to that kind of situation. I think the questions will be answered on Monday when we finally have a face-to-face serious meeting about this with the British authorities. And the question, I say again, I'm framing it like that, is are you willing to give up your highly profitable, highly lucrative access to our market for just 5 slots?
In Heathrow. And it has to be Heathrow because we also heard that there were other alternatives provided, for instance, Gatwick Airport, and it just didn't go down well at all.
That's why I said the British are very experienced at this. They fight this Heathrow battle with everybody else. It's just coming to Nigeria now. They fight it with everybody else. Really? There's this thing going there about maximizing their advantage at Heathrow. Yes, you could fly